So I'm 1 month into January and I'm already failing at my New Year's resolutions. And how's that? Well, I was nonchalantly walking downtown and I saw that there was a sale. And I did what I said I wouldn't do, and I went and bought yarn. In my defense, this is alpaca silk. It was 50% off, and there was enough that I can actually do a project with it. So I bought it, but let's just stop this here. It's the last yarn purchase of the year. So I've used the past few weeks to really think about how is it that I'm going to solve this problem. I want to make a new flyer for my antique spinning wheel that's going to fit all these different size, whoops, all these different size bobbins. I've actually gone to the hardware shop and have looked at all the potential materials I would need, and I have even drawn some sketches of how the actual flyer might look like to fit all these bobbins. Now, in that process, I had a realization. The first being is that it's going to be a bit expensive to both get the materials and the tools that I need to make my flyer. It's going to take considerable amount of time if I were to do it myself. And lastly, it made me realize that it doesn't solve all of my problems. That being that these bobbins, they are still rather small. And I want to spin quite a lot of yarn. And even if I use these, when it comes to the actual plying, I'm still going to have a capacity problem. So it pains me to say that I've come to realize that I need a new spinning wheel. And why is that? Well, I actually had to write down what is it that I'm trying to do here. And I want to make beautiful yarn, but it's not enough that it's beautiful. It has to be enough that I can complete a whole project. And the projects that I like to start or work on, they're large projects. They're mostly sweaters, larger scarves. I've been thinking of getting into weaving, so I would need quite a lot of yarn there. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I don't want to struggle anymore. It's going to take quite a lot of effort for me to make a new flyer. I can make it, but it's a lot of effort that I just don't want to do. And if I go back and think, okay, what is that I'm trying to accomplish? I'm trying to have a hobby that I enjoy. And doing it like this, it's not it. So the conclusion is that I will be getting a new spinning wheel. But before any of that can happen, well, I have quite a lot of unprocessed wool. It's washed already, but it's not carded at all. So I made a promise to myself that I will finish carding all of this wool that I have. And then when I'm done with that, I can go to the store and actually look at some spinning wheels or even consider my situation again. We'll see. So I got this almost for free almost a year ago and it's washed, but the tips they're rather matted. So it's been quite difficult to card this and there's a lot that is going to waste. But there's also a lot that I can save. So I'm not going to be too picky about it or or I'm not going to try to save as much as possible. I'm just going to take the best parts and then put the rest away. I can put it in the garden later when it's spring. I had to migrate to the floor to try to contain all the mess one gets while carding. But okay, while we're carding, let's talk a bit about the bad rep that antique spinning wheels get. I've seen a few videos and posts online. I wouldn't even call it a few. I would say I've seen quite a lot of videos and posts online that discourage new beginner spinners from getting an antique spinning wheel. But I disagree, partially. I think this advice is a bit misguided. First, well, there are some exceptions. Like when I first started to spin, I got this spinning wheel and it works, and I've done a lot of yarn with it. I've had to fix it a bit. There was just some tweaks that I needed to do, like the wheel was a bit loose and everything just needed to be tightened and oiled. And I just had to add a clip to my flyer so that it would hold the string while the flyer spins. So I had to do some adjustments, but it worked, and I spun a lot of yarn with it and I learned my preferences. And I think as a new beginner, the first thing that one should do is try to figure out what works and what doesn't work for you. And I think a spinning wheel, like an antique spinning wheel that works, can be a good starting point. And the main reason is your first spinning wheel will never be your last. This was my first, and because I wanted to spin more yarn, and because once I started, like, people wanted to give me their old antique spinning wheels, I got another antique spinning wheel. It's much smaller. I got it for free. It works. I've done a bunch of yarn with it. But even within this category of antique spinning wheels, I prefer this one over the other one that I had. I'll put a picture here. So I think it's a bit wrong to tell new beginners not to try antique spinning wheels. In my case, it was a cheap way to get started into spinning. And now that I've had this experience with this one, I know exactly, or not exactly, but I know a lot more about what I want to do next and what spinning wheel I might consider getting. Where I live, if I were to get a new spinning wheel as my first spinning wheel, I think that would have been a huge mistake. First, they're really expensive, and I am pretty sure at some point I would have been, I wouldn't say unhappy with it, but I would have realized that if I had known something prior to spinning, I could have made a better choice with regards to the wheel. But that being said, there are many antique spinning wheels that have missing parts, that are broken, that just aren't even worth the effort. They're not. And how would you know that as a beginner? My advice is that if you see a really inexpensive spinning wheel, like almost for free, and you see based on what you have learned online that you can repair it or tweak it yourself enough that you can make it work, I would go for that. And then spin, find your preferences, and then when you come to the same realization as I did, that you're totally mad about making your own yarn, then you can upgrade to something much nicer. Now, as I'm sitting here and thinking, okay, I'm going to be getting a new spinning wheel. Okay, what wheel will I get? Will it even be my last wheel? Am I throwing my money away? I don't know. But I'm happy that I started with this wheel and I learned quite a lot from it. And I would encourage new beginners to give it a go. Just don't use a lot of money on it. But maybe it's easier said than done. I live in a place where there's lots of spinning wheels. People are basically giving them away or throwing them in the trash. Maybe it's not like that in other places.
But enough talking. You came here to see results, so here it is.
As you can see, it's quite a bit of fluffed up wool. I think out of all of this, I set aside maybe 1/3 of the wool, which is then going to my compost. So I've been carding all morning, but I finished the last of the bag today. I did work on this previously, so it's not like I did the whole thing today. I did not. So what's next? Am I gonna get a new spinning wheel? No, not yet, because I still have quite a lot of wool left. This much. I thought I would show you guys my second antique wheel, the one I was talking about earlier. This is basically what it looks like. It works, but as you can tell, it has a bit more damage than the other one. I had to remove the hooks and then I just put this clip here. And the bobbin, it's only broken from there, so it's okay. But the actual flyer, I had to glue together. And you can tell somebody at some point was spinning quite a lot with this wheel because the parts, they're really worn out. This is quite sharp now because it's so thin. And even the treadle there has an imprint of somebody's foot. I wouldn't be surprised if this was almost 100 years old. But as I said, it works. The only issue is that it has only one bobbin and it's very small. I mean, look at my finger. And just to compare, here is the other one of the from the other wheel. It looks huge compared to this, but this is still quite small.
And here's a video of that same spinning wheel in action.
It's late in the evening now, and it's been a long day of work, but I am happy to say that I've done quite a lot of progress on the combing. I have a big bag done. I actually think I will have another bag this size, and then I'll be finished. Luckily for me, as I said earlier, it was much easier to comb this because this was a lot cleaner than the previous batch, and there's still some gunk in there, but it's not as much as the other one. While the other batch was a lot softer, like there's still so much stuff in it, and my combs, they're not taking, or they're not meant to take all of this stuff. So I think some of it will come off as I start spinning. But the point is that I will keep these batches separated. Maybe I can do another project altogether with this one. But it's very soft and it's still spinnable. So we'll leave it at that. Anyway, during this time, I've also figured out which spinning wheel I'm gonna get, or which type I'm gonna get, or I think I'm gonna get a Kromsky wheel, a Norwegian type. I forget the name now. I'll put a picture here. I have been on the fence. I've I've considered the Ashford traditional just because I like how the antique wheels looks. I want to continue with that style, and I also want to avoid a double treadle. Like maybe it's because I learned with this wheel and it only has one that it just seems a little bit weird for me to be moving both of my legs while I'm spinning. Like it doesn't feel right for me. So I'll stick with what I like. Um, I'll buy a single treadle, but I haven't decided which one yet. I'm leaning heavily on the Kromsky wheel, either in walnut color or I might just get it unfinished and then I will finish it myself. That's also fun. But let's leave it at that for now. Maybe next time you see me, I'll have a new wheel. See you next time.